Do you ever feel like you just need to take a minute and vent about all of the things that you don't like in life? I feel like I need to do that. First thing on my list, I don't like how things like refrigerators used to last 25 years, but with our new modern technology, you're lucky to get 5 out of them. I don't like how all the good tasting foods make you fat. That is just not fair. I don't like that even children's sports have become all about winning and turning our children into professional athletes. I don't like how there are no more Saturday morning cartoons. I don't like how Pennsylvania roads have so many potholes it's like driving down a West Virginia logging trail. I don't like how new movies these days are always a remake of something else. I don't like how cell phones cost more than we used to pay for a used car. This is just ridiculous. I don't like how used cars today are the price of new cars. I don't like how everything doubled in price, yet somehow got smaller. I don't like how every romantic high school date now requires a clever poster to be presented beforehand. I don't like how every new movie or TV series feels like it has to be woke. I don't like how every time I go to vote, this is how I feel. There's a lot of things in life I don't like. I'm sure there's a lot of things that you probably share with me on that list, too. That felt kind of good. And of course it felt kind of good. We are a society that enjoys complaining. That's who we are. But don't worry, we're not the only ones. When we look to the book of Colossians, we are introduced to some like-minded people. Paul is writing to the emerging church in Colossae. Now, the church in Colossae is small, and it's just getting started. So to help them along their way, Paul gives them some instruction, some advice. Here's what you need to do if you want to attract people not to the church, but to Jesus. This is the way that you need to live. So here's what he says in Colossians 4, 5, and 6. Be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation always be full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Let your conversation be always full of grace and seasoned with salt. He says that this is very important if you're trying to attract somebody to the church and trying to attract somebody to Jesus. But what do you mean by that? What does it mean, let your conversation be full of grace? Well, the word here in the Greek used for grace is charis. And if you're looking at this word is meant to connotate things like joy, pleasure, delight, sweetness, charm, loveliness. Just things that words that are filled with these great qualities that at the end of the conversation make somebody feel better than they did before the conversation began. That's what grace-filled speech is like. So they are words that are full of love, words that are full of acceptance, words that do not hurt, do not criticize, do not condemn. Words that allow people to feel better for having heard them spoken. Words that you generally don't hear often spoken these days. Why is that? Well, I don't know if you looked around the world, but it's a pretty negative place. I mean, seriously, we live in a world where everybody hates their job. The kids are always misbehaving. The weather is always too hot, too cold, too snowy, or something else worth whining about. Everybody's battling sickness. There is nothing on TV. There's never anything in the house to eat. The in-laws are always driving us nuts. School is too hard. It's too boring. It's not worth our time. The president stinks at his job. Neighbors are mean. Walmart is too crowded. People drive too slowly. Gas is too expensive. And the list goes on and on and on and on. If you aren't complaining about something or someone, then you're probably asleep. And you're dreaming about it. Yes, because that's who we are. That's what we do. I mean, seriously, think about the last conversation you've had with somebody and try to tell me that there wasn't something negative within that conversation. I'm guessing that you can't. And if you think you can, then you're either probably A, delusional, or B, your memory has gotten so bad that you can't actually remember the conversation. That's who we are. We are people that have problems with absolutely everything. So when the scripture comes along and tells us to season our speech with grace, I'm not sure that we even know what that means or what that looks like. I can tell you what it doesn't mean. Swearing like a sailor. Screaming in anger. Belittling your kids. Making someone feel worthless. Insulting a sibling. Calling people names. Insulting someone behind their back. Always complaining. Making someone feel dumb. Those are all examples of how not to have grace-filled speech. So what does it mean then? Jesus knew what it meant. He did. There's a story in John during which the Pharisees bring an adulterous woman to Jesus. Now, according to the Old Testament law, it was within the rights of the law to stone this woman to death. So the Pharisees bring this woman before Jesus to see whether or not Jesus is going to encourage them or take part in the fulfilling of this law and having her killed. And all of these men stood around condemning her with their speech and with their actions. And I sometimes feel like we would have been standing right in the back with the crowd, chatting away like we usually do, saying things like, I could have told you this was going to happen. Her husband spends way too much time at work. Or, if you knew her mother, you wouldn't be surprised. Or, I can guarantee you that this wasn't her first time. It's just her first time getting caught. Yeah, you see, those would all be things that would come out of our mouths and all be examples of words not seasoned with grace. And sadly, there are definitely moments in our lives where this is where our mind is at. Because that's who we are, and that's what we do. We insult, we degrade, we complain, we whine. Our speech is seasoned with sassiness and sarcasm and anger pretty often. But how many times is it seasoned with grace? You know, Jesus was without sin. So when the Pharisees brought this woman to him, he would have definitely been within his right to stone her, according to law back then. He could have berated her in front of everybody. He could have gone into a long, drawn-out sermon against adultery. He could have called her a sinner and told her that he was disappointed in her, and he could have turned his back on her, or told her that this is what she deserved. But Jesus seasoned his heart and seasoned his speech with grace. So what did he do?
Master, this woman was taken in adultery, in the very act. Now Moses, in the law, commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? What sayest thou?
He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Where are those thine accusers? Hath no man condemned thee?
No man, Lord.
Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more.
Yeah. Jesus didn't simply not stone her. He didn't simply save her life. No, Jesus did something more here. Jesus spoke to this adulteress with words of kindness and love. He offered her peace and forgiveness without her even asking for it. You see, Jesus always seasoned his speech with grace. Folks, this is who we are called to be. We are called to be the parent who corrects their children lovingly with grace. We are called to be the spouse who builds each other up instead of tearing each other down. We are called to be the sibling that doesn't verbally fight back when they were lashed out against. We are called to be the shopper who holds their tongue even after a bad shopping experience. We are called to be the person who finds solutions instead of the one who starts problems. We are called to be the worker who doesn't join in on the session of complain about the boss like everybody else. We are called to be the citizen who doesn't speak disparagingly about someone's color. We are called to be kind and loving and forgiving and full of grace. But I wonder, how many times a day do we choose the words to verbally stone someone instead of speaking to them or about them with grace? You know, if your words are full of hate or anger or disgust, then it might be time that you look a little deeper. Luke 6:45 says this. Here's what Jesus said. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. Folks, if your words are not seasoned with grace, then it might be time to see a doctor, because it sure sounds like a heart issue. So I leave you today with a challenge from what I find to be one of the most difficult verses in the entire Bible. Ephesians 4:29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building up others according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Woo-wee! Oh man, that is a doozy. But you know what? If Jesus can offer grace through his speech to this woman, then I've got faith that we have it in us to do it too. We've just got to change our hearts and actually put a little bit of effort into it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. God bless. Take care. I hope to see you soon.